To me, it's one of these things that you got to slow down to speed up.
You got to think of your company as your client as well.
You are one of the best that I've seen at doing this. You navigate an organization like nobody I know.
To me, when you get good, you can incept your idea into an organization and they don't even really know that you're doing it.
Welcome to Building Your Sales Engine. I'm your host, Mark McGraw. In this episode of Building Your Sales Engine, I talk with Steve Popp, longtime friend and a great guy. And Steve has grown through his career. He's had a ton of different positions in sales and sales management. You'll hear about those things, but it gives him such a perspective on how to navigate and sell even in your own organization. How do you get people to do things for you and to manage people and opportunities and projects within your own four walls of your own company? Some of our selling energy needs to be deployed there. He talks about tactical approaches to go do that, and very, very hands-on ways to go improve how you get things done in your own organization. We also spend some time talking about the mindset of good account management and also some ideas in principle in terms of breaking through comfort zones and selling additional products and cross-selling, cross-promoting different products. So a variety of conversation, absolutely golden nuggets in here. I think you're going to enjoy the show. So, hey, everybody, welcome to Building Your Sales Engine, our show where we talk through all of the things that you need to do to go build up sales and grow your business, whether it's on the enterprise side or individuals. Man, I tell you what, we keep cranking out great episodes. At least I think they're great. I hope you do too. Today, we have a good close friend of mine, Steve Popp, with us, who is absolutely just one of the most exceptional human beings. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I've known him for years, and a great guy in terms of training, development, enablement, navigating organizations. So, Steve, welcome. Glad you're here, sir.
Well, thank you, Mark. And, the intro, God, my heart's fluttering from that. Thank you, sir. And, I can only say I feel the same about you. So excited to be here.
We've had so many good conversations over 10 years or so of knowing each other. So it's great. Steve, why don't you share with everybody a little bit about your background, who you are, where you came from. I love to find out from people too, like what got you into sales?
Oh, gosh. All right. God, how do we do this quickly? All right. As most folks do, went to school for something I never thought I would do anything with. Thought I wanted to be a doctor, and then came out and said, I don't want to be a doctor. So have this great education behind cellular biology, physics, and chemistry. I use none of that today, right? But had a good 5-year trip in college, I guess. Came out, my brother, my mom were in sales, and they said, you know what, if you want to get into sales, go sell something difficult. So I started off in the copier sales, right? Learned how to do door-to-door, really hardcore cold calling. Then went into the telecom, then made my way into digital marketing. Well, actually, I took a little trip down Yellow Page Lane first, then got into digital marketing. So worked the SMB world, then got into enterprise selling. Then found myself at this little company called Conversant. And that's kind of where our relationship started, Mark. But Conversant brought me in 10 years ago and asked me to build an early career program. So taking young adults who just finished college and teach them how to talk to C-suite, represent an enterprise product, and ask for some money, right? So we were successful, and they handed me the rest of the sales teams. So eventually, at one point, I was training sales best practices, products, and the entire cabinet of sales tools to about 17 teams globally. And that's when I came knocking on Mark's door, because you imagine a one-man show, that's pretty hard to scale. So thankfully, I had a really great partner, Mark, to help me think about strategy, execution. And then Mark even came in and started working with a lot of our different teams. Eventually, I was given full boat on product. Then I was moved into leadership training, talent strategy, executive development, owned the associate life cycle, and then even new hire onboarding, right? And then eventually a friend of mine, the CRO of our company, Susan Rothwell, came into the picture about a year ago and she asked me to build out a sales enablement team. So hyper focused towards sales, where before you could argue some of my focus was all throughout the organization. I brought on another team player a few years ago, Joe Roth, who helped me really build out this sales enablement. Now he really owns that piece. And I've actually taken on an operations role in the organization. So, what an adventure. And every year it seems like I've tried something different in the organization. So, it's been a real joy and pleasure to have my career growth here. But I'm gonna put a plug in here for you, Mark. If it wasn't for our relationship, I don't know if I would have made it here as fast as I did. 'Cause, you've helped me out with a lot. So
I
thank
was
you. I'm
excited.
taking
Thank
this
you.
moment to thank you.
Well, thank you. We help each other out a lot, it seems, and I always learn new things when I talk with you, and we always have good conversations. And you think about when you just bring that up. I mean, how many? I mean, there's like 10 facets of working in an organization that you've had as far as a background and experience. And I know I want to talk with you about that. But one thing everybody should know, one thing I'm always fascinated. I love to travel. You are one of the only people that I know that travel a lot more than me into a lot more locations. What's your record?
Well, I've hit all 7 continents. So, that obviously will put me into a different level. So, Antarctica, that's a tough one. It's a tough one to get to, but I'm going to share with everybody. If you have the means and the time, absolutely do it. Still my favorite place I've ever been on this earth. Last time I checked, and we have a fun little uh, I guess you would call it, it's kind of a picture, but you get to put your pins in it of all the places you visited. So 42 countries I've been to.
Wow.
Yeah. So again, I have to attribute that to my life partner Christy, who had the travel bug very young. We were very young. We've been together almost 24 years, and we started very first year. We ended up going to South Africa together, which is bizarre, a bizarre first move, but that was what got our travel bug going, and it continues. So.
That
Uh,
that, that is I'm always inspired by that. And I mean, tie this over to sales a little bit too, and then we got a topic we don't jump into together. But to me, and I'm curious as to your thoughts on this, but to me, travel gets you out of your comfort zone, and in sales, you need to be out of your comfort zone all the time. So it just to me always builds confidence whenever I go somewhere that I've never been before, and I'm doing things that make me uncomfortable. I don't know. I mean, I've not been to Antarctica and the like. So you've got. I mean, has it done anything for you? What do you attribute personal development to with respect to travel? Anything, Steve?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Perspective would probably be the number one word that comes to my mind. When you leave the comfort of your own country and home, and especially when you go to an environment where they don't really speak the same language. I had an experience like that when we went to Turkey, where once you get out of the major metropolitan areas, and some of the most beautiful areas of Turkey isn't sitting in the major metropolitan areas, you get out there and they don't speak English at all. So, you learn to use amazing technology for one, so you can use translators, but you still learn how to communicate even without those tools. And that to me is one of the beautiful things about travel is communication, curiosity, and really putting yourself in an uncomfortable space because you grow
Yeah.
exponentially by every move. Then what you also realize is people are really nice. You know, everybody's always like everybody, when you're in the hustle and bustle of things, sometimes you feel like, everybody's running past you, ignoring you, and nobody cares. You go travel and these folks will open up their homes to you, which again, a little unique to foreign countries. I don't know that the US would do that, but
Yeah.
you go into foreign countries and they're excited to see you. They want to learn more about you. They're curious. And it just opens up so many pathways of communication and enrichment would be another word. So,
Yeah, and all those things to me, they help you on the sales side too, because again, to the communication, to being out of your comfort zone, to getting things that you need and maybe persuading people as you're out on the road, and having conversations with people. it just seems to me like it always makes me stronger. And with 42 countries and all the continents, it makes you super strong. So,
Well, I would agree, and thank you for that. It's fun going down that memory road for sure.
indeed. Well, hey, one of the things that we want to talk about today, we were talking about this a few days ago, leading up to our conversation together today. And one of the topics that we want to talk about is getting things done inside an organization. And if you don't mind, let me hit you with this experience that I had, and I want to get your thoughts around like how do you get stuff done internally. Um, if I go back in time real quick, late 1990s, I had just finished my first year in sales, Steve, and I don't know if you remember that, but if your first year of sales, I remember after the first year, I had an interview with my boss, and it was my annual performance appraisal, and I'll never forget this. This has been more than a couple years ago. He said to me in the performance appraisal, he said, "What's the single biggest thing that you feel like you've learned or that you were surprised about in your first year of sales?" And my answer, I remember to this day, was, you know, how much of my selling hours that I spend are devoted to inside of the four walls of this company.
Hmm.
I kind of figured that when I went into sales, I was going to spend all of my time selling and using my selling energy like with customers and prospects. And I was shocked at how much time and energy that I needed to spend internally to get things to happen for me so that I could go make sales. And I think a lot of people struggle with that. And this is something you've spent time around, you've coached people around. What are some of the things that come to your mind, and some of the maybe the best practices or ideas or concepts around getting things done inside your own organization?
Well, this is such a huge topic, and I'm passionate about it, so I'm glad to be. The craziest thing that we forget about as sellers, and I had a similar experience, Mark, when I first started in sales as well, is I think I actually sold internally more than I sold externally. But that's a mindset shift in many ways because a lot of times you think that it's going to be super easy. Just go out and close the deal and things are done, right? And move on. And that's not it. We have to have that mindset of we're always selling and influencing internally and externally. And the more that you get better internally, honestly, your external sale is going to get faster and more efficient.
Mm.
So I know when we originally talked about this idea, I put together some thoughts on what internal relationships really mean and why it's so essential as you navigate an organization to have these internal relationships, right? So I kind of broke it down into three buckets, really. The first one is you can create amazing thought leadership and influence in an organization when you start to build those internal relationships. The second thing is your career growth becomes exponential as you start to do this. And then the third thing I'll say is it opens up opportunities. So I'll walk through these things, and I'm sure you'll pepper me with questions as we do. And then I promise everyone on this that I'll actually even say, "How do you do it?" Right? Because it's
Yeah.
it's probably equally as important of us saying why you should do it, but then how do you do it? Um, so when I think about thought leadership and influence, and we've talked about this so many times, Mark, it's about getting your idea out in the ether, right? So when you've got an idea or you sold a deal and you need to get it through the business, you want to get that out to as many people as possible. And the reason why is I'm a big fan of multiple points of view. The more points of view that
Mm.
I get as I'm trying to navigate an idea or even push a product or a solution through the organization, you just get everybody's thoughts on how it executes. And it starts to build really your understanding of how your organization works and how you can navigate it. I almost call it crowdsourcing your idea, right? Because you want more and more people to be aware of it and more people to feel like they have their fingertips in it. And I know that's one of your favorite phrases, but the more fingertips that are attached to your idea or your project, the better. What I see come out of that is what I call the parrot syndrome, right? Is if you bring up your idea enough to people, they almost feel like it's theirs. And then they start parroting your idea especially when they parrot it back to you, that's when you know you've done a great job with that internal influence. And the last thing I'll kind of say about that thought or leadership and influence is it's like the art of inception, in my opinion. If we haven't seen that movie Inception, I encourage everybody to do it. It's going to take 2 hours of your life, but it's well invested.
Probably more like 8 because you got to watch it 4 times to get it, and then end up YouTubing what's the ending explanation. So yes,
Oh, yeah. I think
big
I've
fan of that movie.
watched it
Great movie.
a good 10 times, and it wasn't until the ninth or 10th time that it all started to fall into place. And I like to think of us both as intelligent people. It's just that big of a concept, right? But to me, when you get good, you can incept your idea into an organization and they don't even really know that you're doing it, right?
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it. So that's my first thoughts on thought leadership and influence.
It's almost like when you do that, and I remember this from the movie, that you plant a seed, right? And that seed will grow. And so this seed is an idea. And what I hear you saying with that is that if you get out in front of enough people and you're getting their input on it, you're planting a bunch of seeds, and it's almost like it's coming out of them. It might have been your idea originally, but it starts to populate from other people and they start to build on it. And I am also a big fan of the idea of you got to get other people's fingerprints on the issue. And once they have some ownership of it, now all of a sudden they have sponsorship and they're willing to adopt it more.
Ah,
So,
perfect
uh,
word. Yeah.
I mean, those are just, I think, I mean, and by the way, knowing you as long as I have, you are one of the best that I've seen at doing this. You navigate an organization like nobody I know. And so I really think you do have a very good insight into how to go do it and go pull it off. And so one of the things I'm hearing in there, because I'm sitting here learning too, is you meet with people either individually or in small groups prior to when you really need something. Is that what I'm hearing too, Steve?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big fan of starting small and then
Yeah.
work your way up. And the reason for that is you're going to get more candid feedback one on one than you will from a large group, especially in today's environments. People are more and more concerned about how their opinions will fall, especially in a large group. So you just
Mhm.
got to embrace that. Whether it's right or wrong, you have to embrace it. And so I like to go, and it's an investment of time. So I'm not going to say that this is the easy route, but it's an investment in time to go to each of the individuals, A, that you want to get feedback from, and B, that you know will have influence in decisioning around these things. And again, investment in time, but if you spend a week or two talking to these folks, and it doesn't have to be a long meeting, it could be 10, 15 minutes, it could be a casual conversation by the coffee pot. It's just getting that idea out there, and it's about presenting it the right way. I normally present it of, hey, I had this thought and it came out of a conversation you and I had in the past, right? So it's a real soft way to throw it out there. Now they're already leaning in because they're like, okay, well, I was already involved in this, so this isn't anything new. And I'm like, this is what my idea was, and I'd really like to get your perspective on it because I think this was a really good idea, right? So you're already leading them into it and making them a partner in the discussion. Uh, the great part about it, and this is one of my favorite points, is regardless of whether you take their point of view into play, they already feel like they have ownership or sponsorship, as you said. So I think the example I've talked to you about before is if I talk to the 8 or 9 people that I know make a decision on a project, I've got them already aligned to it before I ever walk into a room where
Yeah.
they may all be present now. And now I've already got cheerleaders. And so half of that battle is already done because they're aware of it. They've almost co sponsored it. And now it's just making sure that we have alignment across the group and that we can move forward. So, one of my favorite discussions about me and you is when you do all the hard work on the front end, there's no true close, right? So
Yeah.
when you walk into that room, you don't have to close anything. You've already done the legwork.
And I think you bring up a good point in that is that it takes time, but yet to me, it's one of these things that you got to slow down to speed up.
Yeah.
Because if you try to go about selling and working projects and getting people involved the other way, where you don't do what you're bringing up, it just takes longer. You're spending more time doing it that way, and you're fighting more inertia, it seems to me, than when you take your approach, which I love, which is, meet with people one-on-one, get conversations. I love this soft approach because I think sometimes people can go in, Steve, and they come in and say, "Hey, I have this 5-step plan that I'd like your buy-in on," or they feel like they have to have all the answers. But your approach gets them to get their involvement and gets their buy-in and all of those things. But it's not going in with a fully baked plan. You're literally going in with the intention to get their input on it. Therefore, they get their buy-in, and it just gets easier to go down the hill that way.
100%.
Yeah, makes a ton of sense. I love the way you do that. So you're selling one-on-one, if you will, internally. You're getting people's involvement. I don't know why this thought always comes to my mind, but it's like if you looked at the Congress or the Senate, and when they go to vote on a bill, they have the yes no button in front of them. I always think to myself, that's not when they're making the decision as to what button they're going to push.
Right.
That decision's been made in hallways, one-on-one. It's been made over lunches and dinners and all of the above. And I think that's the same process here. When you sell internally, what other thoughts do you have around like building those relationships internally before you need them, or any other things that you're thinking about with respect to getting relationships queued up better internally?
I love it. So now we're getting in the how, right? So let's
Yeah.
let's dive in. The how. I have a lot of early careerists constantly ask me that question of how do you build these relationships? The number one answer is always just show up. Show up, ask for time. There are so many missed opportunities I see in our organization where our leadership, it may be different in your organization, but in our organization, and even that I would argue people with, leaders like to engage with folks. They like to have conversations and they want to help people out traditionally in their career. So show up, ask questions, and be curious, right? And if you do those three things, even in a hallway situation, you're going to be seen more and you're going to start to build somewhat of a relationship. Once you show up, you be curious, you ask the right questions. The next thing I always say is demonstrate value. And how do you demonstrate value? I'm going to go back to questions again, Mark. Right? I think I'm going to use a Sandler quote. Your value to somebody is not the information that you provide, but the questions that you ask, right? And so if you're asking the right questions to these decision makers or to these influencers, they pay notice to that. Why? Because not many people do it. Most
Yeah.
people come in and they just spill an idea out, or they try and say, this is what I think we should do. Let's move forward with it. And that's very one sided. You come in and you say, hey, I think I've got an idea based off of our last conversation that might be able to help out, but I'd really like to partner with you and make sure that I've got this all put together right. And I would really value your input. Now you're demonstrating value to them, right? And they feel part of that. The last part I'd say is just be consistent. If you say you're going to do something, do it. If you say we're going to have a meeting, show up to that meeting. Because to me, consistency equals trust, right? The more consistent that you are, the more trustworthy you are. I'd also say the more questions you ask, traditionally, the more trusted you are because they feel like you're asking for their input. And when they get to give your input, I see trust levels go up.
And when that happens, I think people give sellers on the inside a lot more leeway, and there's a lot less pushback when they see that in an individual. I'm thinking of an example that I've run into, and that's a seller who has developed enough relationship, let's say, with the financial side of house, and they need better payment terms. The client needs better payment terms. This is a simple example, but it's probably pretty appropriate. And if that seller has already proven their consistency, they've proven their value, they've built a relationship with the people that make that decision for payment terms, they're not asking a lot of questions. They're like, yeah, we can do that or we can't, but there's not a lot of, you've got the personal credibility that's built up. And if a seller has abused that in the past, they're going to fight a lot harder to go get those things, and a lot of times they're not going to get them. So it's, you said consistency, you said bring value, show up before you need it. All of those things make a huge difference when you go to ask for help in getting something sold internally. I mean, I imagine you see the same.
I do, and I think if I was to try and sum up what we just talked about here, it's the difference of, are you going to bring problems to somebody, or are you going to bring solutions to somebody, right? And to me, that curiosity, bringing, demonstrating value, trying to understand how we can work together. To me, that's we're coming together and we're creating solutions, right? And we're partnering together for solutions versus me coming in and saying, "Here's the problem. You need to fix it," right?
That's right.
And to me, that's the subtle difference between those two.
And I've seen people do that. I've seen sellers go in and be too heavy handed internally, and it can work, but it doesn't work long term.
Right.
And it builds just too much animosity, internally for sure. One of the things that, you brought up a minute ago, and I think this was on your list of under career growth, Steve,
Mm.
if someone wants to progress their way in higher into the ranks of an organization, those skill sets of working internally just makes them so valuable in terms of career growth. What else would you say about that? Because I think that's a really insightful piece to it that I think could be overlooked.
Yeah. I mean, all this stuff starts to go hand in hand when you think about this, right? If you're coming in and you're not bringing problems, and you're creating solutions and you're partnering with people, the minute they see you, they don't have that moment of like, "Oh God." Right? God, Mark just showed up and now I got to deal with this stuff. On the flip side, Mark shows up and they're like, "Oh, all right, great. This is going to be a good conversation. This is going to start my day off. I'm looking forward to this. I never leave the room feeling bad after we have a conversation. I feel really good and energized." Like that's what we want to bring, right? We want to start to build that, uh, I guess, that name about ourselves, the credibility of ourselves. The other thing you have to start to think about is the more times that you start talking to these folks, these are influencers in the organization, these are decision makers, these are leaders. And the more that they see you, the more they hear you, the more the doors are naturally going to open up, because
Yeah.
when that new role or that new responsibility, that new project opens up, and they go, "Oh, who could be the right person for this?" Mark shows up pretty consistently and always brings ideas. I don't always love him, but he's always bringing ideas. That's the person that I need in this organization, because they're going to challenge us, they're going to ask questions, and they're going to think our way through these problems that we have. So my career growth has to be attributed to the ability for me to develop relationships in here. Because, folks, I am not the smartest person out there. I'm not the sharpest crayon in the box. I'm no idiot, but I've surrounded myself, thankfully, with some very, very talented people. And I look at some of these folks 10 times more talented than me, and they haven't figured out this trick. No matter how often I try to influence them to, like, go out and meet more people, have conversations, bring them in to your ideas, and you're going to watch these doors open. And so it's like kind of my plea to anybody listening is, try these things out. I know they can be scary, but try these things out, because the more relationships you create in this organization, the more doors that are going to open up for you over
But
the time.
what's screaming at me with that, Steve, is all of those things that you just brought up that you do internally to go build relationships, to add more people to the threads that you have within the organization. Those are the same skills that you need to have on the outside when you're out selling within an organization, assuming you have multiple people that you're calling on the other side. You need to have more than just one point of contact. We sometimes joke, it's like, sellers sometimes get OCD, one contact disorder. They get one person that they bond with within an organization, and that's it. But those same skills that you're talking about internally, to get to know different people before you need them, to ask questions, to soft play ideas, don't come in with final solutions. Those are the same strategies that work great when you're selling, like the way that we all want to sell it to the customer. And so we need those relationships. We need those people over there before we need them. We need them to get buy-in. So it's the same skill set one way or the other. And it's such a valuable talent to have.
100% agree. This organization and every organization I've been a part of, I love OCD, Mark. God, I wrote that down and put that in the bank. Um, the larger the organization, the more people that you need to get to know, right?
Yeah.
And if you're looking at expanding lines of business within an organization, you have to. It's integral that you put your tentacles out and get to know as many people. So most people think about that. Well, let's hope, and now they have ammunition to think about that when we're engaging with clients. But you got to think of your company as your client as well.
Mm.
You're constantly trying to build your relationship with your client, gain trust, become a consultant to them. It happens internally as great as it does externally. And I'm going to say this, I think I said it earlier. The greater relationships you have internally, the easier it becomes to sell externally.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's spot on. I love this line, by the way. You got to think about your company as a client as well. And I think when I got started in sales, that was something I just missed. I just figured that everybody on the team, as far as the inside of the organization, of course, we're all focused on getting business and winning business. And the thing, I guess, one thing I miss, Steve, is that they're getting tugged on by dozens of people. It's not just me. And so, I am not the center of their universe, and I guess I forgot that, or had to learn that, so to speak. So,
I had similar experiences. If somebody could have explained this to me, if I would have had a podcast, first year in sales, I think my career would potentially might be in an even greater place than it is now. I'm very blessed to be where I'm at. But my first 10, 15 years, I had no clue about this. I didn't think internally. I just assumed that this system was set up to help me execute faster and better. Uh, as I became more aware, I realized that it was designed to do that, but it didn't execute to do that, right? And that's we can't make those assumptions as sellers and leaders that this system that was originally designed to make everybody's life easier, as the company grows, it becomes more challenging. And it's not like we're doing it on purpose as a company. It's just there's more layers, there's more people,
mhm.
there's more bureaucracy,
More
there's more
products.
challenge, more products. I mean, right now, our company, we're an accumulation of probably 15 different companies, and we have over 60 products that we can sell. You start to think of the sales process on that, and then the delivery process, and then we're trying to cross sell multiple products to a single client. It can become very scary. It can become disastrous, if I'm going to be honest. And
Steve, I
so,
see a lot of companies. Sorry to interrupt you, but I see a lot of companies, a lot of salespeople struggle with that, the cross selling side of things. And it ties nicely to, I think, the idea of getting to know people internally. What are any thoughts you got about that as far as salespeople, account managers, cross selling other products, the resistance and reluctance to do that? What do you see on that side of things?
wow, cross sell. It's almost like we've opened up a whole new door.
Yeah, thought of that.
Um, my thoughts on cross sell is no different than traveling, if we're going to bring all of that back, and honestly, building internal relationships. Right, the more products you sell to a client, the more sticky they're going to become, and arguably the more opportunities of expansion that you're going to have in the future. Not to mention that the amount of revenue that you can start to accumulate as you bring more and more products into a client, it really becomes exponential because it's easier to sell somebody something they've bought from you before, right? And if they have a good relationship with you, there's already trust and it's easier for you to navigate versus going out and trying to knock on, 60, 70 doors to get that first appointment. So I'm a huge fan of cross selling. You have to do it, multiple product lines. It's like creating that pyramid, right? If you're at the top of the pyramid and you only have one product, they don't like it, you're gone. You got three products in there, even if they don't like one product, you still have two working them. But you still need to build those internal relationships because as you sell multiple products, it becomes tougher for an organization to deliver on it. Why? Because now you have two products going on, two teams working on those products, two delivery teams working on those products. And if you can't create a symphony of those two teams working together, it sounds like horrible jazz, right? And the client will feel it. The client will feel it because instead of one person talking to them, maybe two, they've got 15, 20 people talking to them. And so it's incumbent on us as sellers to build those relationships, try and unify those teams, and make sure that we're that one central hub and that we can explain any of the additional conversations that need to happen out there. But that doesn't happen unless you have trust with your internal teams.
Yeah, and also that you're willing to take some. I agree, and you also that you're willing to take some risks and sell something that you may not know as much about. You may have product A that you're selling and you're doing really well with it, and you want to introduce product B and C, and you're afraid that that might jeopardize product A. You got other people. I mean, there's all kinds of things that show up when you're using internal resources to go expand business. For sure, we've laughed about the concept. I mean, I shared with you one day that I've looked at the ability to manage internally, kind of like a conductor of an orchestra. You're not you're conducting the music. You're deciding on the score what you're gonna play, how you're gonna play it, when the drums need to come in, percussion, and but you're not playing the instruments, but you're getting people internally to go present music that the customer wants. And you actually used, I think, a better metaphor than that. Remind me and share with me again the metaphor that you use. I love this metaphor.
When we're becoming very good at selling, we actually have to be a GC versus a subject matter expert,
The
right?
general contractor.
Yeah, be that general contractor. So it's funny how our conversation continues to evolve, and I knew this exactly where you're going with this, right? Because it
It's a
can be
great
scary.
concept.
It can be scary for you to have to represent products that you're uncomfortable with, and that's why I say when you become a GC, you're dangerous enough, right? It's almost like I'd like to call you a DE versus a GC, but you're dangerous enough. Now, all of us start down this path as a subject matter expert. You almost have to. You just have to learn your craft. So maybe you are a plumber, maybe you're a roofer, maybe you're, just putting up the walls, right? That's how you start in an organization. You become that subject matter expert. But as you start to listen, pay attention, ask questions, you learn about other products, you learn about other services. Your clients have questions about other products and services. And that's when we have to start to put on that GC hat and be dangerous enough. So, what do I mean by being dangerous enough? You got to be able to recognize an opportunity, right? So you have to be aware of your products enough and the industry to just recognize an opportunity. So if a client says something, oh, maybe some light bulbs go off. Perhaps this is something that they're interested in. The next thing is qualify it. Can I ask the right questions? And sometimes it's only two or three questions to qualify that opportunity. I'm going to take this from Sandler and Mark. Then you got to quantify it, right? Is there enough pain here? Is there budget behind this? Is this something you want to solve? And then the last thing to be a GC is you just have to solution the concept.
Mm.
You don't have to solution it all the way, but solution the concept. And what I mean by that is, okay, I have an idea that you have problem A. I think we have some solutions for problem A. Here's some of the thoughts behind that solution, right? Just an example of how we've helped another client in the past, demonstrating value. Then you're done. You get them hooked, and then it's time to bring in that subject matter expert, which a GC does. A general contractor goes out and has conversations with folks about remodeling their house, and they'll walk in and they'll go, okay, you want to do the bathroom, you want to do the bedroom, and we're going to do something with that basement. Let's go in and explore it. And they're dangerous enough to recognize what needs to be done in there. Then they solution with them, sell them the dream, say, here's what I'm thinking we can do. Then they bring in the subject matter experts because they aren't going to do the plumbing. They're not going to do the flooring. They're not going to do the demo of pulling all this stuff out. They're going to bring in the right people to help close this deal and make sure that the client or that homeowner is happy.
I love that metaphor. It stands up in account management and especially in more complex deals, but it would apply to anything. Is that you wouldn't expect a general contractor to know every code and to run the wires for electrical, but you certainly expect them to bring in the right people at the right time and know what needs to happen. And it just seems to me, especially when it comes to cross selling and working on that side of things, like as an account manager, there's a desire that that person, the salesperson, needs to know every detail about every product, and that is not the case. I love the way you lay that out. You need to have the concept, and your phrase was solution the concept of what they need, but be okay knowing that you don't know every detail about the product. You just need to know how it works. And I think the key thing is you need to know what questions to ask to qualify the opportunity rather than how to go do it. Do they need it first is the better question to go find out.
Yeah.
So,
I think
yeah,
you nailed it again. I mean, we're going back to this concept of the value that you're going to bring to that table is the questions you ask. It's not going to be the information you provide.
yeah,
You're more powerful if you could. I feel really crazy saying this, but I think I've said this like 15 times this year. We could walk into an environment and know nothing about the products that we represent. And if I ask the right questions
mhm,
about the client's challenge, they're going to feel comfortable that I can probably solution it because I've asked really good
that's
questions.
right.
And then I could say to them, I think we can help you out, but I want to bring in some subject matter experts who can really get crazy with you on this and walk you through every detail. But I really am confident we can help you out. Let's go explore this together.
I love the language too.
Right. And they're like, okay, you asked me questions nobody else asked me. This makes me feel like you know what you're doing.
But it's not even the how we're going to do it as much as it is that you have the awareness to ask the questions.
Correct.
And I can't tell you how many times I've done a role play with somebody as an example, and it's an industry I don't know much about. But as a sales coach and a sales trainer, I find myself in this situation all the time. And it's amazing how far into a conversation just by having a set of questions that I can ask that are consultative based strategic questions and having this thought process that I can sound like I know what I'm talking about, and the person has an increased confidence that I could fix the problem. I don't know what I'm talking about at all. I'm just following a set of questions that give guidance to help someone else unpack their problem, and that's pain funnel stuff. And I
It
think you're spot on.
Well,
Spot on.
listeners, the billions of them out there right now, right? So, listeners, I've watched Mark do this several times. And in fairness, as much as Mark has been exposed to our organization, it's fair enough to say he's not a subject matter expert on our products. And he's been bold enough to
How much have
dive
they
into
done?
this with very limited knowledge to some subject matter experts. And it was flawless. It was absolutely flawless. In fact, those subject matter experts were staring at him in amazement of going, you know nothing about what I do and about my clients and about their challenges, but you have just moved me through where I want to work with you. Right. And it was a role play, but again, it was masterfully done. And it was all done by questions. Not
It's
at one time did you say
following a system. Yep, and question.
anything about the product, right? It was all about questions.
Yeah, that's really the gold to me. Steve, it's been a great conversation, and I'm so glad we got together and got a chance to talk about some of these things. I love the principle that you have about thinking about selling internally, soft selling ideas, getting their fingerprints on it, navigating the relationship prior to when you need it, being consistent. I'm just thinking through all the things that you've brought up. I mean, it's really gold. I love the principle of thinking about managing an account or relationship like an account manager, like a general contractor. I think that is a wonderfully perfect analogy that really helps us all sell more easily, and sell more different varieties of products as well. So, Steve, I can't thank you enough for taking the time, man. Appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me on. It was an honor to spend some time with you and just chat. Right? I mean, it's just two friends having a conversation about things we love.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. And appreciate the friendship and having the honor to get to know you over the years. So
Likewise.
thanks so much, my friend. We'll talk
All
again
right. Good luck out there, listeners.
soon. So, hey, I hope you've gotten a ton of value out of this episode. By far, it's our purpose to help people make money and have fun and have a good time. We're here to help improve your life, to help you make it easier to go sell or to manage your sales team, and ultimately to go build your own sales engine. Don't miss an episode. Best way to go do that is to make sure that you jump out to buildingyoursalesengine.com/follow, where you can link up to all of our latest episodes. For more information about this episode, go to buildingyoursalesengine.com, where you can download show notes, transcripts, and other information, including handouts and snapshots of this and other episodes. If you'd like to connect with us to talk about how we can help you build your sales engine, and you are either located in the state of Georgia or are referred to us by one of our clients or affiliated by one of our clients, please reach out to us at buildingyoursalesengine.com, where you can click there to book some time with us. We can find out how we can be of help with one another. If you're not in either of those two circumstances, please reach out to Sandler.com, where you can find a Sandler office near you. Be well.